Hi, you can call me Moxie. So this video is going to be just like a chatty video. If you're somebody that just wants to have this on as background noise while you're doing things, that's fine too. This video is going to mention some potentially triggering topics, mainly, I don't know if I can say it, I probably can't. But yeah, I wanted to put that as a warning, but also just to say that a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about I've already processed, I've been to therapy. There's things that I still deal with today, but a lot of it has just been stuff that's been from years ago. I just want to make note that if it seems like I'm being kind of lighthearted about it, it's stuff that I've already processed, and yeah, it's just pertaining to the situation with myself. So I feel like if anybody sees this, if you might be someone that is following me from maybe other platforms and you're just genuinely curious, and even if like you may be someone that knows me in real life, that you're just kind of like, what is she doing? What has she been doing the past year, and you stumble across this video. Anybody who's seeing it, hello, hi. So I wanted to talk a little bit more, I guess, just about my past, my upbringing, basically the sequence of events that's kind of culminated into today, me and AwakenedMoxie. So when I was very little, growing up, I didn't have the most stable household. There's aspects of it that I might go into more detail about later down the line, and I know a lot of people that like know me in real life know various details about this. I don't really mind sharing about myself, but because it also involves people that are still in my life, it's just not stuff I really want to put out there as of right now, just out of consideration for them. But just in a nutshell, like I didn't have a very stable, safe feeling house life when I was little. Because of the situation in my home, I was kind of raised to just be quiet and stay out of the way, to keep the peace of everything, and because of that, when I entered school, I was an extremely quiet, shy child. Like, I could not speak above a whisper. I was that kid that like adults and anybody always had to lean down and say, and ask me to repeat myself whenever I spoke, just because I was always so quiet. And because I was so quiet, and because of stuff that was going on at home, and I was just rather isolated, it did eventually culminate into depression, and from that depression, it did lead up to being, which eventually led to me making an attempt for that when I was in middle school. Obviously it didn't work, but even after the attempt, I was still very quiet, and that carried on into my high school years. I was gonna mention, after the attempt, because of the religious beliefs of some of my family members, I was made to go to a priest who doesn't really know me at all, and I had to go to confession. And I had to confess to the priest, like, I am sorry for trying to let myself. Obviously I know, like, if I had heard somebody, like a friend, tell this to me, like, I'm pretty sure I would be like, oh, that's really messed up. And the funny thing is, like, I was just kind of just so unfazed about having to do this. I was just like, oh, I mean, I guess, sure. But I remember even when I was explaining certain things that had happened to my therapist, and I told my therapist, yeah, I had to confess and apologize to a priest for trying to let myself. She was like, concerned. So maybe that's something that's like a little more impactful than I really realize. I just think it's kind of a funny thing that happened to me. Also, I recognize that like the reason that I was made to do this is because these family members, like, they think it's like the right thing to do. Like, they're trying to make sure that I am safe from any kind of sin. I know it's not done with like malintent. It's just I can't stop laughing when I think about it. I just think it's so bananas. Anyway, but I mean, I confessed, you know. So freshman year and part of sophomore year, I was still extremely shy. And then when I was in one of my history classes, I believe sophomore year, we got introduced to the Invisible Children's documentary. And if you don't know what the Invisible Children's documentary was, and they use this documentary to help raise awareness and to try to help the situation. what affected me when I watched that movie when I was a sophomore in high school was I saw these people who witnessed acts of injustice, and they were trying to use their voice to raise awareness to try to help. And I remember thinking in my head that while maybe not the same documentary making path that these people went on to, I just wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to make some kind of difference, but I realized if I can't talk to people, I probably won't be able to make the positive impact that I want to make. So after seeing that movie and after thinking those thoughts, I just started forcing myself to talk to people. Just for a little example to give you like a frame of reference for how this all went down. I remember I would never really go out of my way to answer questions in class because I didn't want to talk, and I was like, I'm gonna force myself to do this. So the teacher asked a question, I raised my hand to answer, he called on me, and I could tell in his voice he was kind of like, oh, she's raising her hand, okay. And so I gave the answer, but in true little me fashion, it was extremely quiet. And so he had to be like, huh? And I repeated myself, still very quiet. And he had to ask again. And the girl in front of me, she just got fed up and she just repeated my answer saying, she said, da 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 da, loud enough for everybody to hear. And the teacher was like, oh, okay. I wasn't upset at the girl personally. I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. Nobody can hear me, you know. But I just remember that very clearly, like I am trying and I need to try harder so people can hear me. But that was kind of the start to it. So I would raise my hand more and I would start trying to force myself to make conversation with my classmates more. Even if it was like bumbling and awkward, I just kept trying to do it so I would get better at it. And then I remember junior year came and I sort of forced myself to enroll in dance and theater just to get even better at interacting with people and socializing. And I'm pretty happy to say, just like the constant work and growing up, it just ended up working out really well for me, because by like early senior year I had gone from being extremely shy, very quiet, self-conscious, to just being comfortable talking with anyone. I didn't really feel like uncomfortable no matter who you were, if you were a teacher, a student, someone small, someone big. I could talk to you if you would want to talk to me. Before I got like maximum comfort, when I was still early in the process of talking to people more and just being more comfortable with myself and with others, there was this event going on for the school. It was like a school fashion show where I guess maybe some kind of local boutiques were gonna provide dresses for students and suits and ties, and we could put on a little high school fashion show. And I remember when I saw the slip for it, I was like, oh, like I thought that sounds pretty cool. There was another girl and she saw me sort of like contemplating over the paper, and you know, she looked at me and she's like, you're not gonna enter the fashion show, are you? And I could just tell by her tone, like, oh, it's such an uncool thing to do, why would you do that? And because I was like not really comfortable with myself yet and just always so taken out of body whenever anybody would talk to me, I just sort of defaulted to like, oh, no. And so I just, without even really thinking, was like, nope, and I just passed the paper along. And of course, I'd come to find later on, when the fashion show was actually happening, the girl who kind of discouraged me from entering, she was in it, along with a bunch of other students who seemed like they had a fun time. And so it was just kind of like an opportunity for something that I thought was fun, and I just let somebody sort of talk me out of it. And I'm gonna bring this story back to a bit more of the stuff going on today. But yeah, that was just one little instance, again, where I was still in the growing pains of standing up for myself, knowing what I want, and all of that fun stuff. I don't really have a lot of like super close friends as I'm leaving high school. I mean, I'm comfortable talking with anyone, but as far as being like really close, I didn't really have a lot of that. But you know, I'd say I finished high school feeling much, much better than how I felt entering it. It was also during the last year of high school that I started getting involved with Tumblr. And not only just Tumblr, but the roleplay community in Tumblr. And I know a lot of people aren't gonna know what that is. It's such a bizarre thing to try to explain if you weren't in it. If you were in it, if you know, you know. You know the drama, the insanity that it was. And if you don't, I don't know how to explain it properly. But yeah, through that community, I started forming relationships with some people online. I met one of my absolute best friends through the RP community. I met a lot of cool people through it. That being said, I also got catfished. I'll insert this little TikTok I made here. Speedrun explanation edition.
What y'all get for number 12?
I got 18.
Oh, I got 9.5.
I got Abraham Lincoln for some reason.
I might do a full video on that situation at some point. It's just I don't want to potentially deal with like anybody coming back. If I do, I just don't want to deal with it. But it was a thing that happened, and it does heavily influence sort of the next wave in my life, you know, the ups and downs. And I entered college sort of in this Tumblr world on the side. To save money, I went to a community college first before going to university. The thing is, for this particular community college that I went to, I usually didn't mesh that well with sort of like a lot of the people that went to this college, and I was still quite young at this time. I didn't really understand, you know, healthy boundaries yet as far as putting yourself first. You know, you gotta fill your own cup to fill up other people's cups. And at that age, I feel like a lot of people haven't really experienced the importance of that yet. During this time period, there were a lot of things that people I knew, a lot of them were going through hard things of their own. And I was dealing with like a steady increase of feeling sort of like isolated because of the time I was having in college. And the toxic catfish, oh man, how do I explain this? They would very often be and they would have times where they would attempt, I don't know how much is real and how much is fake, but you know, I would try to talk them down. A lot of what they were going through, just like so much of it, I just don't know what's true and what's not. And not only for myself, but I know that the way they were, the manipulation that they presented towards others, like I've spoken to other people who were in direct contact with this catfish, and they've told me like they've had to speak to therapists about certain things that this person has put them through. To make a long story short, I didn't know how to take care of myself first. I was feeling increasingly isolated, and the stuff with the catfish was going on, and it just plummeted me back into like an extremely low depressive state. And it ended up bringing me down so low, I started heavily disassociating. And this is before I knew what dissociating was. I didn't really know what was happening, but I was just so depressed and dissociated, I ended up completely ghosting everybody I knew. So I slipped into this dissociated depression, and I'm not even realizing how much time is passing. All the days are getting very hazy. I don't really remember like parts of what I was doing, but I ended up just not responding to anybody, and it started going on for so long. I think it was over a year where I wasn't talking to anybody. Apparently there were some times where people like would try to come to my house and knock on my door because they legitimately thought I was dead, just because I basically fell off the face of the earth as far as anybody knew. And what's wild is, you know, I never had this thought process like I'm gonna step back from everything and just sort of focus on myself. It wasn't even a thought, it was just this depression that had consumed me and like taken me out of my life basically. And honestly, that haze was just kind of like so powerful. I don't even fully remember how I got out of it. I guess mainly just time passed. I'm pretty sure I ended up going to therapy at some point during it. But that, and I started going to a university. I meshed a lot better with the people there than I did at the community college. And so just over time, like I started, I guess, coming back into my body. And then when I started getting fully, I guess, cognizant again, I realized like I was just gone for so long. Like I had friends who didn't know what happened to me. And so like I started you know, reintroducing myself, and people were like, oh my god, you're not dead, oh, she's alive, she's back, and things like that. I definitely made sure to mention to my friends, like, if you, like, I guess no longer want to speak to me, I understand, because, like, I was just gone for so long. And thankfully, that wasn't really the case with the people that knew me. A lot of people, like, we weren't really that close to where it would really affect them that greatly. And the people that were close to me, thankfully, I think almost all of them just kind of, like, excitedly took me back in without really missing a beat. They were just like, okay, tell me, like, what's going on, what happened, and things like that. And yeah, and so I just kind of re-entered round 2 of college, and things were pretty good again. And you know, this is where things really kick off. I got to experience dorm life. I was back to being, like, normally social, and then I started meeting some people in my real life that I really started clicking with and having a lot of fun with. I also got to travel after graduating college and stuff, and life was going really great. I had had all these wonderful experiences, and then I came back here after I had finished traveling, and then something nobody really expected, well, I mean, scientists did, but, you know, then happens. I also don't know if I can say that. I was basically on track to start settling into a pretty normal life. I was settling into what could be like a long career. I was pretty much on track to, like, potentially move in with somebody and just start, you know, that next phase of my life. And then with happening, everybody was just kind of stuck inside, and we all had a lot of time to think. A lot of time to think. And while I was in here thinking about the future of my life, what's happening in it, I just kind of realized that this path that I was on, it's not a bad one. It could potentially be like a really good one, but it's not entirely the one that I want to take. It's kind of more like the one that's just sort of setting itself up. And so I know this is true for a lot of people, but, like, I was among those people that kind of, like, started kind of changing the trajectory of my life during the lockdowns. And naturally, during that time, myself, as with most people, mental health started to dip again. And again, as I had mentioned in my intro video, during this time, if you know, Unus Annus on YouTube was a thing. I'm actually wearing their merch right now. And I said I didn't want to get smited for speaking about it, and I still don't, but I think a little bit of context is necessary for people that don't know. Basically, Unus Annus was this channel made by Markiplier and Crank Gameplays, where for every single day they put out a video. They did something like really mundane and really crazy. They had a team of editors, and they just did something every single day, and they had a year to do it, and by the time the year was up, they were going to delete the channel and all of their videos, and they did. And you could take away many different messages from Unus Annus, but I feel like the overlying message, and definitely something that started recorded with me, is just Memento Mori. Remember death. This is an outlook I already had, but it just kind of even further highlighted its importance to me. We are going to die. We have a limited time here on Earth. Maybe we'll go somewhere nice after death, and maybe we'll go somewhere awful, maybe nothing will happen at all. All we know is we have time here on Earth where we can do things, and it's limited. So, take me, someone who's, again, quite isolated, needing things to do, falling back into the mental health pit, being reminded of this Memento Mori notion. And I just decided there's a lot of things I can't do right now because of lockdown, because of health regulations, because of many things. But there's a lot of things that I can try to do. I can try to make the most of every single day that I'm here. I can try to do something neat, something that I want to do every single day, like Unus Annus did on their channel. And so I started thinking about this, and I'm just like, I'm gonna write down a list of a whole bunch of random things I can do. I numbered it 365 because I wanted to think of 365 things to do. I remember one of the lines from one of the videos, I'm pretty sure Mark said, "Today we innovate or we die." And because of my mental health state, and because of the world, and just everything all happening at once, that was kind of what was going on with me. Like, I was slipping back into those thoughts, and I hadn't had those thoughts in so long. And so me actively trying to find things to do, things that would bring me joy, for every single day was sort of just like a direct attack on this mental state. And I also remember this one TikTok I saw at the beginning of 2020, which is unfortunate considering how 2020 turned out. And I don't know if they said this first, but in the TikTok they said, grab 2020 by the throat and squeeze until success comes out. And I was just kind of starting to really push for this mentality of like, grab life by the throat and squeeze until happiness comes out. Like, if you're gonna give my brain the sad, I'm just going to grab life and fill it with so much nonsense that I'm gonna have a good time regardless. Which is what I started to do. My mindset with this is very, I suppose, counterintuitive to trying to grow on social media, because there's no point to what I'm doing. When I post things, I don't have this mindset of like, I'm going to try to grow these accounts. I am literally just doing whatever pops into my brain that I think will be fun. I've said this on TikTok before. I do it, I chuck it into the void that is the internet, and I repeat. And why am I doing it? There's another TikTok that I saw of this wonderful man who always says, one time for the one time. And that's literally what's been my outlook on life, on many things, on why I'm doing this various AwakenedMoxie stuff. Just why are you doing it? One time for the one time. I am going to die one day. I don't know when that's gonna happen, but you know, I could be in my bed just taking depression naps, which, you know, sometimes those still slap, sometimes they're very necessary. Or I could put on a pink wig and cat ears and dance for no reason other than why not. I could play first-person shooters that I've never tried before just because why not? And I gotta say, it has helped a lot with my mental health. It's been doing wonders. But because I sort of have this mindset of just doing whatever comes into my mind, I know my content is all over the place. Sometimes people follow me for like the spooky TikToks I make, like the glitchcore stuff, and I love that stuff, and the weirdcore stuff. But then next, like I said, they get a bunch of like cat girl videos, which I also like. And then there might be people who follow me for more serious content, like stuff that I've done, and then all of a sudden they get hit with more OC nonsense. And on here, you know, like I didn't mean to like sort of start doing a lot of gaming content. It's just what I felt like doing that day to bring me joy. The driving force behind my AwakenedMoxie content is, first one, to do things that bring me bits of joy every day so I don't let myself, and to have a better mindset. And two, if somebody sees my content, whether it's here on Instagram or on TikTok, if they see me doing something that they think could be fun, they just see me trying different things, and they might be like sad or bored too, like I said in my intro, I kind of hope that it like maybe motivates them to try it out too, if they want to. Sort of like how Unus Annus, it just kind of motivated me to really just try to force happiness into my life. If someone stumbles across this chaos and they kind of are like, oh, maybe I could try that too. That's kind of all I really hope for. It's sort of a strange mindset to have because I'm not necessarily trying to entertain anybody. I'm just doing what I want, putting it on the internet, and if you are entertained, great. With that being said, there might be some people who followed for one thing specifically, and they're just kind of like, oh, there's a bunch of other stuff happening here, okay. Because of that, like, I welcome you to come anytime if you see this stuff and it's something that you enjoy. And if there's other stuff that you're just like, I'm not really into this, then I don't expect you to interact with it. I don't want you to have to sit through anything that you don't enjoy. And I understand, you know, if you come here and you subscribe and you're having a good time, then I'm happy for that. And when it's time for you to go because you're sort of just like not into it anymore, then I'm happy for the time you were here, and I hope you have a fun time elsewhere on the internet. And if you end up seeing something random that I do and you're like, huh, that's strange, but okay, and you end up coming back, welcome back, you know? It's a weird thing to not really mind the numbers at all because of the fact that I've been doing it just so I have something to do. Certainly if I see people are positively responding to something, then I'm happy. But if something that, like, I don't know, I put a lot of time and effort into doesn't get that much interaction, I don't really mind, because if it's not something that you want to watch, then I don't want to force you to do it, you know? We each only have this one life to live, and I want both of us to make the most of it and fill it with as much enjoyment as possible. And I guess tying back to the instance where I wanted to do that fashion show and I kind of got discouraged from doing it, only for that person to end up being in the fashion show themselves, that kind of inspired the current caption I have in my bios for Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. I have your turn in it. And I basically mean, like, I know there are people out there who want to try different things, who want to try cosplay, who want to try more gaming stuff, but they may have been discouraged by others, or they're sort of maybe a little shy to try to join, or they feel like nobody really wants them there. The reason I have your turn is kind of like just sort of the opposite effects of that whole fashion show ordeal. Like, if you want to do it, tag, you're it. Go ahead and try. Just, I like to see whatever kind of content you're trying to do, if that's what you want to do. As I've said before in my other TikTok, you know, I just want us all to have a fun time on the weirdness that is the internet. There's space for everybody, and if someone doesn't really like your stuff, that's okay, because, I mean, there's still also going to be people who do like your stuff. Basically, I just want everybody to fill their lives with as much joy and chaos as you want. I've been having a fun time doing the things that I want to do. I've only got a limited time to do it, and I'm going to try to do everything that I can that I want, and I hope the same for you. That's just a little bit more about, I guess, me and the AwakenedMoxie content that I have and why it exists, what the heck I'm doing with it. There's no point. That is the point. I like a lot of the nonsense that's on the internet. I like things that are just kind of weird for weirdness sake. And I've been having fun. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.